we're back for another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. So we're going to start getting down on the video. We are back on the YouTube channel. Last time we appeared on the YouTube channel with the Michigan Recruiting Insider was signing day. We had a bunch of guests. We're going to start having more guests on via the YouTube channel. Of course, you can always listen to us on the podcast channel as well. If you like this podcast, be sure to rate it. Be sure to review it. Be sure to tell all your friends about it. Of course, also like us on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel as well, as we are going to come every single week with the Michigan Recruiting Insider on the YouTube channel moving forward as well. Joining me this time, only one of the normal additional pieces of the crew, as Steve Lorenz is on vacation, but we can still put it down with the man, the myth, the legend, one Mr. Brice Marich. Brice, how you doing?
Good. You got the best looking one of the two. So, I mean, that's good, especially we're on video. I mean, I'm a little hit. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little hit. I just got back from my bachelor party.
Yeah, man.
But, I'm
Yeah,
hanging in.
hey,
I'm hanging in.
we're gonna get you. We're gonna improve the lighting so people can, they can see the complexion just a little bit better. They can see the
Yeah, what
clean,
side is the
clean
best
beard
side?
line as
Okay.
well, right? You got to get lined up if you're coming off of that bachelor party. So looking forward to the pending nuptials of one Mr. Brice Marich. So Brice, we got a lot to get into this weekend with Michigan picking up a couple of international commitments, and wanted to spend some more time taking a deep dive into that piece of the puzzle. Well, it's a new piece of the puzzle for Michigan. They picked up a kid in the 23 class, a defensive end prospect named Aymeric Kouba by way of France. And then they dipped into the 24 class and went international for a kid named Manuel Biegel. And these are a couple of kids that the Wolverines got a chance to see during their satellite camp, right?
Yeah, so with Kumba, he actually was a guy that Mike Elston, the defensive line coach, first put eyes on at the Mercer camp. And
Yeah,
so
Mercy satellite camp. Yep.
yep, and he saw that length, that flexibility, that bend, that kind of twitch coming off the line. And again, they're not in pads, they're in helmets, but he has the physical tools, the raw ability to where you're like, okay, we can work with this. And one thing we've noticed with Mike Elston so far since he's been in Ann Arbor, he's looking for guys he can develop. And he's found so far plenty of guys where I think have tons of upside. I mean, through the roof in terms of potential with these guys. So I'm really excited about him because we're going to talk more about international recruiting. This is something Michigan fans should kind of be familiar with because in 2016, they got another defensive lineman in Julius Welschof from PPI recruits. So
Well, so let me
yeah,
help you out. Welschof. See, I had to learn
Welschof.
that too. I
Okay,
had to
little
learn that
something,
too.
little
And if you
something.
get confused, just call the man Juice. We'll see if he
Juice.
brings that, we'll see if he brings that juice to the field this year. Because athletically, he's one of the freakiest guys on the team. I mean, I've heard that for years. It's just a matter of growing him up in the game. Remember, he was like an alpine skier or something like that.
Crazy.
Who, right?
Crazy.
Who was this guy who has all of this, has all of this football potential. And so it's just been a matter of growing him up in the game. And they feel like he's poised to have a breakout campaign. But that's one of the things that I talked to Brandon Collier about, the leader of PPI recruits. PPI stands for Premier Prospects International. And so, again, he brought those guys, this latest crop of guys, stateside during his Dream Chasers tour. And Michigan got a chance to lay eyes on two of their newest commitments. First at Mercer, saw him again at another camp. We caught up with Brandon Collier, the guy who runs PPI recruits, for an interview to get more in depth, not only into those prospects, but Michigan sort of turning this into a practice of looking abroad. So here's my conversation now with Brandon Collier. International guys who are looking to be noticed by institutions here domestically, there is one name that I hear more and more about who they're contacting. And certainly it's been a vehicle for Michigan to get involved with international prospects. His name is Brandon Collier. You may have heard it a couple of times as Michigan picked up a couple of his kids here recently from PPI Recruits, Premier Prospects International. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing great, sir, man. Thanks for having me. I've been following you as well for the last, years, especially since Julius signed with Michigan back in, I think, the 2017 class, and been following. A big fan of yours as well.
Yeah, man, appreciate you taking the time to sort of talk about your program and talk about the kids here recently that Michigan got commitments from out of your program. But let's just start with your beginnings, Brandon. I mean, how did this concept start? How did you get started sort of getting with international prospects and exposing them to American institutions?
Yeah, I would say, well, the whole thing kind of started when I was back in high school. I went to a small high school in the inner city of Cleveland where not many college coaches came, so I kind of had to handle my recruiting on my own. So I was waking up early, making my VHS tapes, calling coaches all times through the night. So,
Are
so
you
what I'm
taking
doing
back
right now,
VHS
yeah,
taking it back?
yeah. So it was VHS days. So like I said, my 2004, I came out of high school. So like I said, sorry about this. Somebody tried to call, but I was making calls and things, and ended up signing with UMass. Had a short stint in the NFL with the Eagles. Played in Canada for a couple years. Then I went on to Austria to start a career in Europe, and I went on to Germany after that in 2013. So I played up until 2016, and just kind of seen a niche that nobody was doing, as I seen a lot of young talent throughout Europe when I was actually playing against some guys that was 17, 18 years old. I was about 27 at the time, and I'm like, man, after I'm done playing, I'm gonna try to help these kids to get to America. So that's kind of how it first started. In 2016, I had found one kid just randomly at a football game. He's actually playing in the CFL right now, named Thibaut Dubai. Ended up signing with Towson University. He's a kid that if I would have had a couple years later, would probably played at Michigan or something like that. But that's kind of when I first started, and just kind of started developing these guys. Started, like I said, hosting camps all around the world, and just really kind of trying to make a name for myself. And like I said, we have done a really good job over the past years. We're over 100 kids and got Division I scholarships.
Yeah, and so clearly your name is really moving out there
Mhm.
across the pond, man. I mean, we're now it's like if guys want to go that route, they contact you, and that's certainly what happened with Julius Welschof or Juice. So kind of take me through that process of you connecting with him and then ultimately him winding up in Michigan.
Yeah, this kind of when I first started in 2016. Like I said, the kid Thibaut Dubai, and I helped another kid named Maxie that signed with Duquesne, and Julius followed this thing through Facebook. I guess I was going Facebook Live at a bunch of schools, and Julius was following this, and he reached out to me via Facebook and said, "This is my name. I'm 6'6". I'm 240 pounds. I run 4'4", 4'5" with 10.5 broad jumper." Some, like I said, some video game type numbers. I didn't really believe it because people say that all the time.
Right.
And the very next day, he jumped in the car. He lives about 7 hours away from me driving. He jumped in the car 7 hours and drove from Bavaria, Germany, up into Wiesbaden, Germany, where I'm located. And he showed up. It was snowing outside, and he ended up running a 4.5 in the snow and had like a 10.5 broad jump in the snow. So, like I said, he did them couple things, and I'm like, man, this is the kid that's gonna kind of take us to the next level. And we started working together for about 5-6 months, and I invited him to my summer tour, what we call the Dream Chasers tour, and kind of the rest is history from there. Well, we camped at Michigan, didn't get all. Okay, let me kind of take that back a little bit. So I seen that this was in January. I met him in 2017. Then Michigan, ironically, came to Italy, Rome, Italy in 2017. So I went out there with him because I played for the defense coordinator Don Brown at UMass. So I'm like, okay, man, you coming to Italy? I'm out here. Let me come meet you. I'm gonna bring a prop. I didn't even mention Julius to him, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring this kid just to kind of see what American football, because I thought he was that type of level with just his athletic ability. So he's out there watching and things like that. I mean, I got videos from this, so it's kind of like surreal to today to see him at Michigan. Then he came on the tour in June, did really well at the camp. They didn't offer him just because, I mean, the program was so new
Right.
that, I mean, no one thought as a Michigan talk about taking a German kid with playing 1 year of football. And we kind of got into the season, sent a little more film and stuff like that. Then Michigan got an opening literally, I think a week before signing day, Coach Brown gave me a call and said, "Man, you think Julius be interested still in Michigan?" I'm like, I believe so. So he called Julius, offered him a scholarship, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Right. So I know you've had a chance to sort of keep track of him and catch up with him here recently. He had 1 year of football when
Mm-hmm.
Michigan got on him. So there was, it was more than just to grow physically. He had to grow in the game mentally. When
Mm-hmm.
when you talked to him recently, when you talked to the coaches recently, what did they tell you about where he is and his progression?
Yeah, even before I talked to him or any coaches, to be honest with you, I had about 20 agents call me over the past months. I had some NFL scouts call me. I had multiple NFL people say, "Okay, man, this your kid. He got a 4th-round draft grade right now," and so he never really played football. I mean, he played sparingly at Michigan the last 2 years. Had some good things, so. I went up there to visit him. I visited him 3 times this summer, actually, just come back with prospects. And I'm speaking to the strength coach, man, like who's the biggest freak on the team, and they saying Juice, and I'm seeing him run versus defensive backs and things. He's the fastest looking guy out there, the most explosive looking guy out there. So I'm like, man, I mean, I wasn't surprised because I hadn't seen him since 5-6 years now, but just to kind of see him competing with some of the top prospects in the world at Michigan and beating these guys in sprints and things like that, and the coaches say he's one of the hardest working guys on the team. So that's kind of I mean, like I said, I'm very happy to hear that and things like that, and I'm just happy for his really last year. I think, man, when he gets the right opportunity this year, man, I think that he'll have a great season. And like I said, he learned a lot from Aiden Hutchinson, being his roommate for the last 3 years, and things like that. Best friends with him, so I think just that rubbing off on him, seeing him make $35 million bucks. I think Juice is. I think he's ready to take that next leap.
Yeah, man. Look, the physical part, I hear you say you saw that. You knew that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a part of learning and growing in the
Mm-hmm.
game. And now, you learn behind a guy like Aiden, and you get your opportunity. Now the lights are on. Let's see what he does with it. So it looks like he's gonna have that opportunity this year.
Right.
But that sort of paves the way, right? You get Juice in the door at Michigan. You get profile at Michigan. They know that you have guys. So
Mm-hmm.
now when Brandon Collier calls up or he's on his dream chaser tour, it's like okay, he's gonna bring some dudes by.
Mm-hmm.
So Aymeric Kouba, take me
Mm-hmm.
into them seeing Aymeric Kouba for the first time, one of the most recent commitments to the University of Michigan.
Yeah, I think that when Coach Elston came to Michigan, it was big because I had a good relationship with him from Notre Dame, where he offered one of my DNs, Alexander Ahrensberger, and really he has having an impact right now at Notre Dame. So he liked him on and off the field. So coming into this summer, June 1st, we down at Mercer University, and Aymeric Kouba worked out. Like I said, Coach Elston, nobody knew who he was. I didn't really promote him like that because I knew what he gonna do. So I just kind of promoted, showed him that first day, and I mean he dominated at this camp down in Georgia. Ended up getting about 6 or 7 offers. Michigan didn't offer him at that point, but they flew the next 2 days to see him in Texas as we went to Texas to kind of grow a relationship with him, and they offered him about 3 days later. I mean, he's a kid that's 6'5", 230. I mean, just ridiculous wingspan, a 7'2" wingspan, huge hands, runs 4.7 to 40, explosive 10-something broad jump. Actually got way more football experience than Julius, as he played 5-6 years, and a way better football player as at this moment than Julius was at his time. So of course, he's still kind of raw just being out here in Europe and with not the same coaches they get in America, but he's more of a ready now prospect than Julius. I think he'll surprise a lot of people going forward.
So his name, I remember vaguely seeing his name mentioned in a report about another prospect, which ironically he went to Ohio State, a dude named Hero Canoe, right? And I had seen his name was like, man, he didn't have a profile or anything like that. He was just mentioned as like a bullet point. So
Mm-hmm.
was that sort of the plan? You sort of brought him along slowly in the background, and the team start noticing him at that point. Sort of give me more on Aymeric sort of background in the game and his background with you.
Yeah, I mean, Hero was probably the top prospect that we done had coming out of our program. So anybody that worked out alongside of him, because they was at a camp in Sweden together. So yeah, I mean, Hero was actually both is at that camp, and they both did really well. So it might have been a report from that camp or something. But yeah, I just think that with him, I didn't really oversell him, because I knew when because the kind of the COVID year last year kind of hurt a lot of kids from Europe that couldn't come over. So I knew that, okay, once he finally able to come over, man, with his length and athletic ability, man, his is going to sell itself. So that's kind of what I was patient with him and tell him just to trust the process. So again, like I said, I didn't try to oversell him. I kind of wanted his talent to speak for itself, and that kind of what it did. And I think, man, Michigan kind of really hit on a big gem that they don't have to fight a lot of blue bloods for, which they probably would have if he was in America.
All right, so break down his game, his height, his weight, speed numbers, and when you watch him, like what jumps out at you? What does he do well when you watch him in workout?
Yeah, he's a legit 6'5", 230-something pounds. I mean, with the frame to probably put on 260. I mean, he runs 4.7. Like I said, he got a 10.2 broad jump. Very, actually very physical. Man, he got almost 11-inch hands, so he got real big, strong, heavy hands. And I think that what stands out about him is just his length. I mean, his long arm. I mean, just how he know how to use his body and things like that. And he know how to get under O-lineman with being so long, he can still get low and be flexible. I think that his first step explosion is really unique, and I think he got the ability to drop in coverage and stuff like that. He got the ability to play that Ajabo Hutchinson outside linebacker role where he can drop in coverage and rush the passer. Like I said, I think that, of course, his best football is ahead of him, but he's not going to be so much of a project like Julius. But like I said, he's a kid that I would say in a year or two, man, a lot of Michigan fans will be thanking probably Coach Elston and maybe myself for helping that kid get to Michigan.
So what's the plan for him? Is he gonna play stateside this year? Or is he gonna still be overseas? Like what's the process or plan for him before he comes to Michigan?
Nah, he's actually finishing his senior season right now. So he just won the national championship out of France, and he's doing some national team things in France before he go to Michigan in December. He'll sign and go in January.
Gotcha. All right. So that wasn't the only one of Brandon Collier's guys from PPI Recruits. Again, Premier Prospects International. You can find them at ppIrecruits.com. We'll get more into that about where, whether it's international or domestic prospects are kind of, looking to you now for some help. So we'll get into that shortly. But also a 24 prospect, Brandon, that, we hadn't really heard about until, we saw his name mentioned in the Michigan report. But Michigan offered him, he jumped on it. Manuel Biegel. Kind of
Manuel Biegel.
Manuel Biegel. So tell us about Manuel Biegel.
Yeah, he's a guy I met roughly about 2 years ago, and he came from playing soccer, 10 years of soccer, and he outgrew the sport. And one of my good friends named Max Zahar out of Germany, he said, man, I got this big kid, play soccer, didn't play much football. You should take a look at him. He's really athletic. So I seen him. He was 6'5". I mean, he had these big, broad shoulders. I think he was 260 at the time, but now he's 285. I mean, he's a kid. Like I said, if you ever see any soccer players, they got really good feet and balance.
Yeah.
So he's just so quick and athletic to be this size. I mean, like I said, he got the frame to put on to be 305, 310, and moving really well, man. Another kid I think Michigan really hit a home run on, because he's gonna spend the next 2 years in Connecticut developing that choke preparatory school. And man, like I said, we went down to Alabama, and Nick Saban brought him into the office and said, man, like, you one of the most impressive prospects that I've seen this year. You know what I mean? When I see any film of you, I'm going to offer you a scholarship. I mean, I really like what you did today. As you know, man, anybody that can get that type of recognition, I mean, I didn't tell Coach Saban about him, so they kind of knew, they seen him on hand, and so that's kind of what happened. We worked out at Ohio State on the first day Manuel got to the U.S., but he got like a heat like he was dehydrated, so couldn't finish the workout because it was so hot and he just got off the plane. So I shouldn't have let him work out then because he wasn't ready. But the very next day, I'm like, man, you got to suck this up, man, because I think Michigan would be a great fit for you. So he kind of sucked it up, man, and had a very impressive workout, man. Like the things that he did for his size, like Central Michigan was there. They offered him first on the spot at the workout. Then, man, Coach Elston kept coming to me like, man, yeah, it's an impressive guy right here. And I would say 2-3 days later, Coach Elston called with a scholarship for him.
Okay, all right. So again, that's two more of your guys. I'm sure you have some more in the incubator, so to speak, guys that you're raising that you're bringing up. So any more names that we should be on the lookout for that coaches are sort of have their eye on right now?
Yeah, they actually offered another kid named Justin Okoronkwo. How you say that name? Justin Okoronkwo, man, German, half Nigerian, half German kid out of Bavaria, Germany, out of the Munich area. They offered him at a camp, and he's a class of 24, man. He's got off from Penn State as well, so I'm not sure how long he'll make a decision, but I know Michigan is very high. Then we got Kofi Taylor Barracks, a kid from the UK that Michigan is very high on as a linebacker as well. I believe he'll be offered by Michigan very soon. So them a couple guys, but man, I got about 20 to 30 other guys over the next two classes that I think that's that level type of talent. So like I said, I'm gonna kind of let them speak for themselves for their talent. But like I said, just be on the lookout, man. And I think this pipeline could get even bigger soon.
Okay, so Justin, what again?
Justin Okoronkwo. I might be
Okay,
saying that wrong, but it's similar. It's
but he's a ball player, right?
he's a boy. Yeah, he's 6'2", 205, ran high 4'4", 4'5", 40. And man, it's an impressive guy, man. I think that he'll be one of the top linebacker prospects. I would say all of the world if we just speak because he's in Europe. But I mean, I think he's a top 10 linebacker prospect in the world if I had to say it.
So are any more of your guys going to be playing from overseas? Going to be playing high school ball in America this year?
Yeah, I got another O lineman that's gonna be playing. I got two O linemen that we playing in Santa Margarita High School in California from the same school as Hero Kanu came from. That one of my good friends is the head coach there, Anthony Rouzier, and I got a kid that's going to IMG. Probably one or two kids going to IMG Academy. I got a kid from Senegal named Mamadou. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry, Momo, but he'll either be going to IMG or he got a couple other schools that offered him high school wise to come there and play for him. Let me see who else. Another kid named Keon. I can't even pronounce. I'm sorry, man. I'm bad with these last names. They not easy.
Listen.
So he's another German kid that we playing at IMG, but we have about 4 or 5 kids playing at the high school level. But most of our kids will be coming from either Europe or Australia, so directly from the pipeline or from their club team directly to the to college football.
So this isn't one of your kids, but he is at Santa Margarita Catholic in Collins Achiampong. Did you have any knowledge or connection to him at all?
Who is this?
Collins Achiampong, the defensive end that Michigan just got.
It's I haven't. I have a lot of knowledge of him because, like I said, one of my good friends is the head coach there. So he called me. So I got this kid. He's from Africa, been playing basketball here. That's really a freak athlete, man. And then, ironically, Michigan. He committed to Michigan maybe a week or so later. So I know Hero Kanu know him well, and another kid that I'm working with, a domestic kid, Tyler Parker. So the guy went viral. I don't know if you've seen him, but the 14-year-old kid went viral. So I kind of met him through Hero, and he came on our tour with us. And I think Michigan actually going to offer him over the next couple of days, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Santa Margarita Catholic. We need to be so. Tyler Parker's there. Collins Achiampong is there. And you said who do you have at Santa Margarita right now?
Okay, it's gonna be a kid named Jaden. First name is Jaden. Then another kid, another kid. He's from Berlin, Germany. Then we're gonna have another kid out of Wiesbaden, Germany. Named.
Hey, man, DM me.
We're gonna have two kids there.
DM me. We'll figure it out. So
We're gonna
here's
have
the
two
thing.
kids there.
Here's the thing, Brandon. Whether it be international kids or kids here domestically, that either want to connect with you for more exposure, or they want to go on a Dream Chasers tour at some point, how can they get connected with you and everything that you're doing?
Okay, yeah, they could follow. Like I said, we really was open to only international kids, but we have grown so much that we didn't help some domestic kids. We got a kid that went to Memphis named Warren Peoples that came on the Dream Chasers tour. Domestic kid from the U.S. At Memphis. Again, we got the kid Tyler Parker that really went viral over the last couple weeks. 14 years old, man. I think he'll be a 5-star D lineman.
How big is he? Real quick, how big is Tyler?
He's 6 foot 305 at 14, man. But kid, his build is so impressive, man, that he can carry 305 like a lot of people can carry 260. So he got long arms as well. But how you can get into contact with us is, through social media channel. My personal social media is B Collier PPI, so BCOLLIER PPI. Then our page, our Instagram for PPI is at PPI Recruits. And then we got a website, ppirecruits.com. Also, email info@ppirecruits.com. And lastly, I would say Instagram at PPI Recruit, not with an S on the end. So PPI Recruit. So like I said, them the best ways to get in contact with us, whether you want to go on a tour, help get more exposure or anything, man. Like I said, I think how far fast we growing right now, we only gonna get better with everything, and I think that we are one of the top organizations of what we do in the world, and we're gonna just continue to shell out more and more top prospects.
Yeah, man. And my last one for you, it definitely seems like an avenue that, at least right now, if you're on it, you can find some hidden gems that other schools don't know about yet. I know the secret is getting out, but it still feels like a little bit like a secret that Michigan and a few other schools have peeped a little earlier than the rest.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it is kind of a secret, you would say, but I think it's more of a secret that the schools don't let it know. But really, I'm a lot of head coaches is in my direct messages, man, from the biggest schools in the world in
So the
America.
secret is out. The secret
So
is out.
so they really, I would say every school in the country know who we are. They know exactly who we are. They don't want to probably be out there as much, but they are sending me messages asking about the top prospects, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, whoever, with Michigan, Penn State. All these head coaches are in contact, or assistant coaches, somebody contacting about the kids and stuff like that. But I would say over the next year or two, you'll see a lot more kids getting placed, and a lot of these blue blood schools taking international kids without even hesitating anymore.
Gotcha. Well, Brandon, appreciate your time. We certainly are going to be keeping track of you, your kids, and when the Dream Chaser Tour come back around, we'll certainly be keeping track of that too, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you for your time as well. Thank you.
So, Brice, that was enlightening to say the least. When you hear from the guy who goes back to first, Julius Welschof, as you said, he's the guy back in 16. He sees Brandon connecting with some prospects, and he says, "Hey, I want to do that. I'm kind of grown out of this skier side, and I feel like I could do some things in football." And boy, did Brandon saw him one time work out, and he's like, "Man, this dude is a legit guy." His connection and being a former player for Don Brown was really the vehicle that got Julius Welschof noticed by Michigan, and the rest, as they say, is history. And then, of course, you fast forward to the here and now, and the opportunity to get these latest couple of guys in front of Michigan really, really did the trick. And nothing like those live scouting moments to really give a coach an opportunity to put an eye on the potential And that's all it took for Michigan to go ahead and extend these offers.
Yeah, we talk about evaluations and in-person evaluations and how crucial they are in terms of recruiting, and especially they became even more heightened during the pandemic. You know what I mean? Because they didn't really get that. So this is kind of new. Obviously the coaches have done this for years, but they're getting back on the saddle, kind of figuring it out. And so this is a guy. Again, they saw at the Mercer camp. They got him back up to Ann Arbor. Mike Elston did a little film study with him, got to pick his brain to see again how much does he really know about the game? Because a guy from Paris, France, how much would he know? As far as soccer, maybe he knows a lot about soccer, but he
Right.
knew a lot about football.
Yeah, because different from Julius, and we went into this with Brandon. Julius hadn't played football at all. I mean, this was just, I'm a big athlete. I want to
Right.
play football now. Whereas, Aymeric has actually been playing some football. So it's not, he's further along in his progression. The level of competition is obviously going to be a steep leap for him. But he at least has some familiarity with the game. So it won't be as steep a learning curve for him when he finally comes stateside. But to get into this maybe being a theme moving forward, we've had a lot of conversations about how NIL in its current, format, in its current application, how it is a disadvantage for Michigan. I mean, it's just the brass tacks of it, right? They don't apply NIL in the way that the majority of college football is applying NIL. Now, how do you bridge that gap? Again, you got to have really, really good recruiters who can go out and, the guys that you have the opportunity to really get, that if they're looking at a lot of things in addition to NIL, you can get them. Mike Elston did that with Eno Etta, right? Eno Etta had a bunch of options. I'm sure he heard a bunch of NIL pitches, but clearly there are a number of factors that go into his recruitment, academics being a huge one, right? And so Mike Elston able to get that one done and bring that one home. Same thing with Collins Achiampong, who had a number of factors that he's looking at, academics being one of them, player development being another. NIL was a factor, gave him pause, right? Miami made him think, LSU made him think. But at the end of the day, he winds up picking Michigan. That's of course Mike Elston. But you got to give Dylan Roney a lot of credit too, because man, that was a guy who was really shouted out by college. Man, Dylan Roney spent a lot of time with them on a visit, so you got that whole staff recruiting effort sort of injected into this equation. So you got to be able to do that, and then development. So if you aren't in on as many 5 stars as you were before because of NIL, can you grow some guys into being 4 and 5 stars, right? Can you grow them up in the game? I know Collins Achiampong is playing here now, Brice, but he's very young in his football development, only played as a freshman, right? So you're going to have to grow him up in the game. And then, of course, these 2 international guys in Aymeric Kouba and Manuel Biegel, you're going to have to grow them up as well. But if you look at just their raw physical traits, these guys have the characteristics to be impact players, but you got to grow them up. You got to develop them. That's one of the ways in which it feels like Michigan is going to try to bridge whatever gap has been created with NIL.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it before even the podcast of international recruiting, and it's funny because if you think about it, there's millions of people on the other side of the country. And if you look on that side, there's got to be a couple guys, a couple diamond in the roughs, and this all started from when Harbaugh went over there to see the Pope, you know?
Right.
And now look, now they're developing a pipeline to where they're finding hidden gems and all this untapped potential, and they're just scratching the surface of what's to come. And who's to say these guys are going to pan out to be the next David Ojabo? I'm not sure, but there's the potential, and you can see the formulas there at Michigan. And another thing, you mentioned NIL. You don't really have to worry about that with international students, but you can sell them on this. Look at David Ojabo again. The guy obviously wasn't able to benefit from the NIL at Michigan, but he became a second round pick after tearing his ACL at his pro day. I mean, most guys their stock's dropping drastically if that happens. So he definitely got paid. At the end of the day, that's what people want, the prospects to go to the next level, get paid. And Michigan has the formula and the ingredients to get them to where they want to go. So I think international recruiting is one spot they can definitely take advantage going forward.
Yeah, I think, and just a nod to Mike Elston one more time. I think that the way his defensive line class has or is unfolding, because I mean, who's to say it's a finished product, right? I mean, you got some interior prospects that you can still see Michigan chasing, but I think the way that this class is unfolding is maybe like the model. Like you're still going to be in the mix. Make no mistake. When I talk about NIL, the application of it being a disadvantage, like Michigan isn't doing the pay for play thing. Now, again, if it were me, I have no moral quarrel with the idea of paying prospects. That's not Michigan's way, which is fine, right? But you got to be able to get some of those. Like you can't be disqualified from all, prospects, all high 4-star and 5-star prospects. There have to be some that you still have a chance to get. Eno Etta. That is a heavily contested recruitment that Mike Elston was able to get done, right? Even with the specter of NIL looming out there, down in Texas, he goes out and he gets that done. You got to have the recruiting prowess on your staff to still win battles like that. You got to be in the mix for a Nicholas Harbor. There are going to be some guys still out there that you can mitigate that NIL disadvantage with. And I'm just talking about in the application of it, not doing the pay for play thing. Guys can still come to Michigan and earn big time NIL dollars. They just aren't guaranteed those dollars coming in the door. That's what Michigan doesn't do. But can you still get some of those guys? He did that. And then, and same thing with Collins Achiampong to a point, right? But then can you identify those guys, whether internationally or domestically, that might not be to that level yet, and grow them up? And he's identified those guys too. That might be a model that can be applied across the board for Michigan recruiting. So we'll see if it works out that way, Brice. But we got to get to a break. When we come back on the other side, we will get into offensive line recruiting and sort of picking up where we left off before, because there have been some significant developments on that front. We will add to it some more confirmations for the barbecue at the big house. We'll even get into some basketball recruiting as well. This is going to be a huge basketball recruiting weekend for the Maize and Blue. We'll get to that on the other side here on the Michigan Recruiting Insider. All right, Brice. So we talked offensive line recruiting last week in light of the board sort of thinning out at the very top with the top 100 guys that Michigan was on, and sort of pivoting into who are the guys remaining in the top 100 that Michigan was still in the mix for. So we talked about Monroe Freeling. We talked about we talked about DJ Chester was another one that we got into, and then of course we talked about Spencer Fano, who, and let's just start there, because we sort of joked around a little bit about how I give Michigan credit. They got him on campus. He is talking about coming back, which we will get into. He is giving them reasons to think that they have a legitimate chance in this race. And while that may be the case, Brice, I have a hard time seeing any team overcoming, the hometown school that his brother's playing at in BYU. But there's at least reason to think Michigan has a puncher's chance, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say the same thing again, the Lander Barn thing, but it does. It's in the back of your mind, isn't it? When you think of recruitment like this, you think of the ties, especially where he has around that certain school, and he's on the opposite side of the country. It just makes you leery of, like, can Michigan really do this? But we talked about the formula of how to get out of region kids, especially high profile ones. You got to get them up to campus probably at least twice to really have a puncher's chance in recruitment.
I mean,
they got the one half.
He lives in Provo, and his brother plays on the team. I mean, it's
Hey,
possible.
you know what? But here's the thing. What if his brother transfers?
It's
Right?
true. It's true.
Things happen. Things happen. So you got to recruit, especially with nowadays. You never know. And what if his brother says, I like Michigan? You never know. I mean, I'm not saying that could happen, but at the same time, what if he does transfer? Now all those ties, and let's say it's a bad transfer. Again, I'm not saying this will happen, but you never
Hey,
know. You just
Andrew,
never know.
Andrew Gentry, case in point, right?
There you go. Proof in the
So,
pudding,
so
right?
look, it's possible. But as possibilities go, I do think that there are some that are more realistic in the mix. But again, if you could get a guy on campus twice, I think that puts you in puncher's chance category, right? And so Spencer Fano will be back.
Yeah, so he actually has locked in official visit. We found out and learned for the Michigan State weekend. And that is, when you're looking at the home schedule, that is probably the best game to see. I mean, hate to say it, but that is probably the highlight of the season in terms of home games they have here. That will be a big environment, a rivalry game, and one where, he came up during the spring. And while that was certainly nice, and he probably got a lot of quality one-on-one time with Sharon Moore and got to see the facilities and walk in the big house, it was empty. A game day environment is completely different in Ann Arbor than just walking through on a random Thursday or whatever in April. And so I think that could take him back. And while BYU is a great program and they probably got a great stadium and a lot of great, alums there, it's a different experience. It's a different experience, and a lot can happen, like I said. So, again, getting back up, and one more little thing. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I've heard rumblings that he could potentially even make it for the barbecue. We'll see.
And we'll certainly see on that. But the guy who, again, not to say that Michigan is the favorite, they're going to get this guy. But when Michigan offered him, I said, Brice, gotta go see DJ. You remember this?
I remember.
You're like, I don't know. You gotta go see DJ Chester. I just got a feeling that this is one of the guys that they will have a better shot with, because I think they're getting in at a point where they should be able to get him up on campus for a visit. And now DJ Chester is locked in for an official too.
So he's set for that same weekend, the Michigan State weekend, Sam. He will be in town with Fano. Those are two top 100 offensive tackle prospects. I know fans have been crying out loud, where have been all these, top end offensive linemen? Well, now you got two coming for the biggest home game of the year. This is a guy I didn't personally think that they're going to get much traction from. When I went first see him, he was a little familiar with Michigan. He obviously watched the Ohio State game, was very impressed. He knew about the Joe Moore Award. But other than that, he joked with me. He's like, haven't been north of Chicago. So he's like, I don't have a clue what Michigan has to offer. But he did take a visit and he camped. We talked about last podcast in Ann Arbor. He really enjoyed that experience with Sharon Moore. Most pundits think he's probably going to stay down south. But again, for him just to lock in an official visit to Michigan, that's a win itself. And from there, you never know. I know Steve Wilfong has said this for years, but Michigan knocks it out of the park when it comes to just recruiting visits. Once they get kids on campus, and he covers all the programs in the country, he said Michigan is one of the top programs, just impressing kids when they get them on campus. So you never know. I actually think they have a better chance with DJ Chester than Spencer Fano right now.
Me too.
And we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, and look, one of the unfortunate things is you got to get deep into these recruitments before you really understand where NIL fits in on the list of priorities. Like I say all the time, if it's the factor, Michigan's not going to get that guy. Like if it's about NIL and NIL is the majority of the criteria, if not all of it, they're not going to get that guy, because that guy is going to go to the highest NIL bidder, right? And Michigan just won't do that. But if it's one of the factors that they're considering, and then that prospect will listen to what Michigan is pitching about the NIL opportunities, because the NIL opportunities will be plentiful for any prospect coming to Michigan. They're going to have, opportunities up the wazoo. The question is, you know, how willing is a guy to forego the sure thing? And I don't pass judgment on those who aren't willing to forego the sure things, like the guarantee coming in the door that I know I have this NIL deal coming in, to each his own. That would be something that would appeal to me, right? Because what if you get injured, right? So I get it. I get it. But there are enough prospects out there for whom the guarantee is not a huge deal. And you got to get deeper into the recruitment to really figure out, is this one of those guys or not, right? And so right now, still seems like, that's up in the air, at least for as far as Michigan's recruitment of DJ Chester is concerned. But here's what we also know. Michigan not putting all of their eggs in those 23 offensive line recruiting baskets, right, as they're expanding the board.
Yeah, so actually just yesterday, Sharon Moore extended 2 new offers. And I think it was in light of Paul Mubenga news. That was a guy that we all crystal balled. Sam, I will give you credit. I will give you credit. You warned me. I got a little jumpy.
I should have warned myself. I mean, I warned you and I warned me.
I know, but I got a little jumpy.
Follow it.
And he definitely sold me on the academics. And I'm not saying he still isn't loyal to academics or anything like that, but there could have been other factors. You never know when he committed to LSU, but that was the program for him. And you just move on from there. And so he was expected to come up for the barbecue. That will not be happening anymore. He will have several of his top, teammates at the barbecue. But I think Michigan right now, and especially Sharon Moore, is looking at the board and saying, okay, we would love to have a guy right next to Amir Herring that has a high potential, high ceiling. It has several tools that could be another all Big Ten, all, caliber guy. One of the guys they offered fits the bill to a T. He's a Texas Tech commit. He just skyrocketed his stock to a 4-star. His name's Nick Fatigue. He's a 6'4", 275 pounder. He's his measurables is incredible. I know 24/7 Sports is really high on the measurables. Multi-sport guy, and he's got potential position flexibility there. So he's a top. He does the shot put. He does the discus, and he competed in the 2022 USA weightlifting national championship, and I think he won in one of those in Vegas recently. So there's a lot of skills there, a lot of tools there. And when I talked to him, I just posted the story on TMI. He mentioned to me, he said, listen, as much as I love Texas Tech, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't look into Michigan and really take a close look at them. He said, I'm wanting to look at the business program. That's what he wants to major in. And so he's going to take official visit, I think, probably in the fall. He was mentioning September. Nothing's locked in yet there, but that's kind of where he's leaning. I really think Michigan has a shot there. I know he's from Texas. He's committed to Texas Tech, but at the same time, Sharon Moore and what he's done up front, along with him saying he's a business major, that's a lot of boxes checked in favor of Michigan there. So I think they have a real shot with this kid.
Right. So we shall see. Again, not putting all their eggs in the top 100 offensive line target categories, sort of branching out a bit. And then, we're working on some more barbecue confirmations, by the way. And it could be the case that they have a top 23, or at least for them, a top 23 at the barbecue. But we got to get that confirmed first, as we are efforting that. Don't want to drop any names at the moment until we receive the confirmation along those lines. But hey, speaking of the barbecue, Brice, we do have some 2024 barbecue confirmations, a number of them along the offensive line, and interesting sort of, I don't want to call it a coincidence, but maybe it's a sign of direction with Michigan's focus in Ohio. Been seeming like, the push in Ohio is stronger here in the short term, at least insofar as it comes down to the barbecue confirmations, because a number of them coming out of the state of Ohio.
Yeah, so this is a pleasant surprise that, I didn't expect Michigan to really be recruiting Ohio the way they have been, but they're making a point of emphasis to really attack that state. And I think it's a smart move by them because again, Ohio State, they can only take so many kids. And at the rate Ohio State's recruiting at, it's such nationally that it is tough, and I know Cincinnati's making moves there as well. But you're Michigan. I feel like you should be able to land some of these kids as well if you really want them. A couple of those offense linemen you mentioned, Ben Roebuck, he's a 6'7", 320-pound mammoth offensive tackle. Comes from the same school as Kyle Kalis, St. Edwards. So they definitely are well coached, definitely well disciplined, and it's a guy that's been up to Michigan before. So this isn't his first rodeo seeing Ann Arbor. Another guy, Avon, Ohio, 6'4" or 6'5", 290-pound. He's a 4-star offensive tackle. Luke Hamilton, another guy that has been up to Michigan before, has a great relationship with Sharon Moore, and he's eager to check out Ann Arbor once again. And finally, third guy is Brian Robinson. You talk about a guy that posts a lot of, workout tapes. Usually I don't put too much, stock into it, too much whatever into it. But Sam, even for me, this is pretty impressive. Some of the way he's, throwing up there and stuff like that. 6'4", 230. You know what? I mean, for me at least. I don't know about for you.
I still gotta
but,
see. I still gotta see you throw up this 225 10 times like you've been talking about, Brice.
Put on the live. Put on the live. I want to make sure the whole world sees it too. You know what I mean? But Brian Robinson, he's from Youngstown, Ohio. Michigan offered him. He's been up there a couple times, and he actually loves Michigan simply because of Steve Klinkskill, who's from the Youngstown, Ohio area as well. So there's a lot of connections there. And these are three guys I think Michigan really has a shot with. Again, Ohio State, anytime they want a guy in Ohio, makes it 10 times harder. But Michigan is laying down the foundation. They're really putting in efforts in the state. And I think overall it will pay off in the end. And this is a good step in making that happen.
Yeah. The barbecue, then it's going to be a loaded week. And, I mentioned we working on some offensive line confirmations. There are a couple of big defensive confirmations that I'm working on right now. By press time or by the time this podcast posts, it may be up on the MichiganInsider.com. So be sure to check it out. But, Michigan been pushing really, really hard for return visits for a couple of their prime defensive targets, a couple of their top defensive targets. And I'm hearing that they're locked in, but I just want to confirm it before I throw it out there. So check us out over on the MichiganInsider.com for those. They would be big confirmations. I think they would be signals that Michigan, again, in my opinion, if they return for visits, what it would signal to me is that Michigan is out front for both prospects. That would be my belief. So we'll get into that.
We call that a tease. We call that a tease in the business, huh? Okay.
Yeah. But it's not just a big weekend or a big week for Michigan football. Next week will be a huge visit weekend for Michigan basketball, as they have 4-star power forward out of Texas, now playing his final year of high school ball over in Arizona, a kid named Zayden High, whose recruitment has exploded here in the spring. I mean, he was back in March. It was like UTSA and some other sort of lower tier mid-major basketball schools, to now it's like Michigan and Villanova. He just picked up an offer from North Carolina. You got LSU coming in the mix. I mean, he is just racking up the offers left and right. Zayden High is about 6'9", 6'10", 225 pounds. I've heard some scouts sort of liken him to a longer version of Isaiah Livers. We had Tim McCormick, who runs the NBA Players Association Top 100 camp on the Michigan Basketball Insider, say he didn't really see him shoot it like Zay. And I agree with that. But I think Michigan thinks he has the potential to shoot it like that in time. So getting him on campus at this point, I think, is very significant. Because part of me wondered, why are they pushing so hard to get him on campus now, Brice? Why, as opposed to getting him on campus for a visit weekend during football season with all the pomp and circumstance? What I think is the rationale behind it is I think they want to get him on campus twice, right? What's our principle when in football recruiting, right? Can you get an out-of-region guy on campus twice? I think Michigan is pushing for they push for the official now because I think they plan on trying to get Zayden High to come back for a visit weekend in the fall. And I don't know if it's going to work out that way, but I think the relationship is such that I give him a real shot at getting that done. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. And then the other guy that's slated to be, he'll be on campus Tuesday. So Tuesday through Thursday, he's ranked number 43 overall in the country. By the time the cycle is over, he could be even higher. But it has gone from out of the rankings altogether to now 4-star top 50 guy at number 43 overall in the country. And then the number 1 point guard in the country, a big time prospect on the board for the Maize and Blue. But man, when you talk about top targets for Michigan, this has been a name that we've talked about for some time, even when he wasn't mentioning Michigan in interviews. But Isaiah Collier, Wheeler High School down in Georgia, number 10 in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, the number 1 point guard in the country, 6'3", 190-pound, 5-star guy who locked Michigan in. If you watched us and you read the reports from the NBA Players Association Top 100 camp, last month we told you that this is what Michigan was trying to do. They were trying to lock Zayden High and Isaiah Collier in for the last week of the month. That is a done deal. It'll be Zayden High Tuesday through Thursday, followed by Isaiah Collier Thursday through Saturday, and Michigan sort of duking it out at this point, seemingly the most with UCLA, Alabama, Cincinnati, USC. Those are the schools that are jumping out at me because those are the schools that he's taking official visits to. It's not to say that that's, the list, but those are the ones that seem like Michigan is punching and boxing with the most. Time will tell, but a huge, huge, huge visit week for the Maize and Blue. And Brice, one more that could be visiting here in the not too distant future. I just got to give you a shout out. I sent you down to Spiece last year, and there was a guy who was, he was right around the top 100. He wasn't ranked nearly as high as he is now, but now he's, man, you talk about 5-star, top 10 in the country, dude. Xavier Booker was a guy you laid eyes on before Michigan even offered him. And now he's number 4 in the country. And there's talk that even though Michigan isn't mentioned among the favorites, a lot of Michigan State talk, a lot of Duke talk. I think Michigan State's probably the favorite for that young man. There's a lot of talk that he could slide in here for a visit in the not too distant future to Ann Arbor. So that's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, this is a guy that I accidentally saw. I mean, this isn't my fault, but I was watching the wrong game, and he just stood out to me. This 6'10", 200-pound, lanky, long, athletic guy had was like a pogo stick. I mean, every ball that went up there, he was getting that rebound. And then not only was he doing that, he was taking the ball down the floor as well and then creating offense for his teammates or doing it himself. So I was like, this kid has to be like a top 50 player. And I looked up and he was a 3-star and didn't have many offers at the time. And I'm like, what is the deal with him? Next thing you know, he does a couple more, circuits here and he blows up. And now he's a top 5, according to 24/7 Sports, overall player in the nation. He's a very elite guy, shot blocker. He kind of reminded me a little of Musa in terms of his athletic ability and traits. He just jumps out the ceiling. And so I really liked his game. I think he fit really well. He would fit really well at Michigan. I know when I did talk to him at that camp, he said one of the things I do like about Michigan, even though he didn't have an offer, was Juwan Howard. He's like to be coached by a big man himself that's made it to the pros, on top of won a ring there, and knows guys like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. You can't ask for much more. So they got a lot in their favor, but at the same time, it could be an uphill battle with like some of the schools you mentioned, Sam, Michigan State, Duke, and even the in-state schools, Indiana, Purdue.
Yeah. Michigan State and Duke especially though, because like when we talked to him down at the top 100 camp, it's like who is the coach you hear from the most? Who are you close to? Tom Izzo, Michigan State. I mean, he was, and that's been the case for a long. And so if Michigan is going to bridge the relationship gap, they've been recruiting him, but they were later to the offer party than the others. When Michigan is able to bridge the gap, it's because obviously Juwan's a huge relationship guy anyway, but the other piece of that is the respect that he garners as a developer and as a guy who knows what it is to play in that league for a long time and develop guys to play in that league for a long time. That'll get guys to say, all right, hey, maybe they haven't, been on me as long with an offer, but that doesn't matter. I like the guy and I know he can develop me. We'll see if Xavier Booker winds up being one of those guys that says the same thing.
Hey, and just to point out too, you never know. I mean, look at Terrace Reed. He was going to commit to Ohio State, right? And Juwan Howard and them flipped that one, another big man. So, hey, I'm just telling the people, just like Spencer, Fano, you never know.
Yeah, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Purdue were really strong. And I think it was between Ohio State and Michigan State before he came on that Michigan visit, and Michigan completely turned it around for that very reason that I just laid out. So that's why I say if Michigan can get him on campus, if Juwan can get in front of a big fella like that, you got at least a puncher's chance. We'll see if they get Xavier Booker locked in. Don't forget, working on some barbecue at the Big House confirmations, some significant ones. So be sure to check that out over on the MichiganInsider.com. If you don't follow us over there, we do the Recruiting Insider every day, 24/7. And for just $1, you can get in on that mix. So be sure to check us out over on the MichiganInsider.com. Of course, if you like this podcast, be sure to rate it. Be sure to review it. Be sure to tell all your friends about it. Of course, if you follow us on the YouTube channel, subscribe to us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on the Michigan Recruiting Insider, the Michigan Basketball Insider, our Behind the Uniform series, which we're throwing up our latest episode with Will Johnson. So check that out. Always something going on with the Michigan Insider. So again, folks, thanks for listening. Next time, we're going to get into some deeper barbecue at the Big House preview here on the Michigan Recruiting Insider.